before I invite my amazing panelists up here, I thought I'll just give a little bit of a backdrop, just 3 slides on kind of some history of revenue management technology as well as distribution and social technology, just kind of to set the context. So it all started in the 1960s. And one of the things you'll notice is that as we go from decade to decade, the list gets longer and longer. So the speed of technology coming on board and new types of technology being introduced is just so exponential. So back in the 1960s, there was Sabre. Sabre was actually American Airlines' internal reservation. So it wasn't really a revenue management system at the time. It wasn't a global distribution system, GDS. Then we went to the 1970s. So we had Apollo, which is later on became a GDS, but was at that time United Airlines. Then actually Westron was one of the first hotel groups, CRS, which was actually a West Indian system. And then towards the end of the 1970s, then Sabre became a GDS by providing a system to travel agents to be able to book on it as well. And as I say, the list gets a little longer. So in the 1980s, we had MS Windows. Then Sabre, or rather American Airlines, developed its own in-house revenue management system. So that is what I would call so-called, in a way, our industry's first or very early revenue management systems, part of AA. Then the SDR benchmark, as we all know it now, actually started back in the 1980s. Then this concept of switch, the Disco and the Wiscom switch. Of course, now we have, the HSMAI, we have the Derbysoft, which are all connectors. So the concept of this switch connecting hotels and airlines with global distribution systems, that came around in the 1980s. And then the revenue management systems for hotels also came about then. So while IDEAS is not the first of the revenue management system providers, but in terms of here in Asia Pacific and among all the sort of very strong, robust players whom we know, they're one of the earlier ones that came up with a commercial product that you could take in. In the 1990s, we had the World Wide Web. It's really very surprising how recent only this whole phenomenon of the World Wide Web, which is now completely taken over every aspect of our life. Then the big hotel chains, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the IHGs, started really to build in-house robust revenue management systems. Then browsers came about, so you have Netscape, then the Internet Explorer, and at the same time, of course, then search started to make its entry. You had Yahoo and the Googles. Then towards 96, 97, that's when OTAs, our very beloved and very pervasive partners now in, again, every aspect of hotel and hospitality, they started. The Expedia, Travelocity, and Priceline all came up within a couple of years from each other, 96 to 98. Then this passkey is actually a group type of a volume group handling system. So I'm not sure how many, I think a lot of hotel groups do use it, but it's more pervasive in America than here. So passkey group reservation concepts came in. Then by the end of 1990s, really, while 90% of large hotel chains, not independents, have websites, but less than 40% of them actually have instant confirmation and not really linked to a sort of a real-time booking engine. Then another phenomena that came in, and we know every country has introduced their own, but I think nothing has been really taken the market by storm like all the Chinese players. So the Baidus, the Alibaba, the Tencents, and the C-Trips were all started around towards the end of the 1990s. And then in terms of revenue management area, things like group displacement, understanding that should you take this group, what it will displace in terms of your transient revenue started to be built into revenue management systems. So you see some of those areas are marked in red. I've kind of just highlighted red would be those that are more related specifically to hotel revenue management. The rest are a little bit more about the whole world of distribution and social and digital. But I thought it would be easy to just kind of wrap them all together so that you can see the transition from decade to decade. So 2000s, and again, these are just the highlights of some of the first movers into these areas because, as you know, almost every day a new technology company in hospitality is coming up. the hotels, we went into this concept of bar pricing, which is why you were asking, so is bar pricing still relevant? So in the early sort of 2000s, this concept of bar pricing became far stronger and became like the norm. Everybody knows that this is what revenue management is doing. We are actually optimizing on the bar price. Then the European Opodo and Orbitz came in. The OTA share and margin, the overall share, that means the volume that's been booked through OTAs, as well as the margin. Nowadays, I know some of us have to grapple with margins that are as high as 30%. In those early parts of 2000, the margins were much smaller. But then 911 happened. And when 911 happened, the fastest way to move inventory for so many of the hotels around the world, because they could react and they could get your pricing out there, were really the OTAs. So Expedia and Priceline, especially these two, gained a lot of market share and actually managed to negotiate a lot of amazing margins at a time. And they have never looked back. I think it's only really been progressing more and more. So by then, 64% of hotels now, a little up from the 40%, have booking engines towards the early 2000s. Then search engines and SEO started to become a priority. A lot of people understood the concept, were willing to put money behind it, so that became a lot more pervasive in the early to mid-2000s. And then meta search came in, so you have the kayaks, and then later on the chinas that were coming in. Then competitor influence pricing. So again, back to revenue management, you had the bar pricing, and now your bar pricing was not just understanding your own demand, it was also understanding what should your price be relative to your competitors. So I kind of put rate gain there, and later Banu will join me on stage, because I think that's also a big development for us to not just look at internal demand that's affecting you, but always to understand what is relative like to your competitors. So in 2006, the internet has finally outstripped GDS in terms of number of bookings. Then brand.com took a slightly different focus. So now we've got instant booking engines, we've got the some of the pricing on it, we've got competitor influence pricing, and now really for brand.com at that time was really content is king, something that we continue to hear all the way through since 2007. And the flash sales type of specialist niche sites came and went very quickly, as Fabian explained, but it did come around 2007 or so. And then right at the end came the Airbnb and the Ubers. Although really Airbnb really didn't take off for many years. I think 2009 to 2010, they were still operating at very, very low volumes. But just within the last 2-3 years especially, it's just exploded as the whole concept of sharing economy, from taxis to even having a meal at home and all that has exploded. And then we come to 2010. And 2010, if you take a look at it, the list is just as long and it's a lot more consolidated. I've tried to consolidate some of the concepts a little bit more, and it's really only 5 years or 6 years that we are going into. So big data started to come into play. So concepts like ECRM, analytics, came into the purview of the revenue and the sales and marketing team. So channel management now and revenue management got a lot more priority, because prior to this, every channel was kind of almost the same cost, so you were a little less concerned with the cost of a channel. You were just more concerned with what revenue you're getting in. But now that we have the OTAs with different margins, wholesales with different margins, and so on, so channel management and therefore net RevPAR became more of a priority. Then hotels went more into non-rooms revenue, so we heard a lot today about total hotel profit optimization. And with big data, you will hear more about total customer value. So you heard Limin mention total guest value. So it's total guest value for this reservation, but it's also total guest lifetime value. So you're going to start to see that in revenue management, it's really critical that you keep your room for the guest that is forecasted to have very high future value as well, not just for this particular stay. Then, Facebook hit 500 million users. User-generated content became mainstream rather than just a specialist area. Apple, just to show you the prevalence of mobile, in just 80 days, they sold 3 million iPads, And in 3 days, they sold 1.7 million iPhones. So, and those numbers will, continue to go up, and that's just Apple. Then cloud computing, of course, meant that your data and information is available everywhere. You're not tied to any location, in fact. Then mobile now exceeds desktop users, as we heard that 2 years ago, and it's all about social, local, and it's about mobile. Then Google and TripAdvisor, I put it as plus, because now the question is, it's not just simple search, but they're really coming into the world of travel and ability to facilitate the booking. And then mobile wallet would be the next area where you have everything that can facilitate the payment as well right up front. And then consolidation, of course, is the next thing that we're hearing. Consolidation on the OTA levels, and you'll hear that the OTAs are not just buying perhaps other OTAs, but they're also looking to buy other types of experiences, like Priceline buying OpenTable. So now you're able to combine hotel room experience, and it's going to creep into your entire hotel stay. Because after a guest has arrived, now they can actually, if the guest wants to say, oh, I need a restaurant during my stay, do they go to your hotel concierge, or do they just go to their app and say, well, okay, OpenTable, please recommend the best 3 restaurants according to the profile that you already have of me on your app. So it's definitely talking about both vertical as well as kind of horizontal consolidation. And why do you suppose so much money is going into travel? I mean, all of these, whether it's the Facebook, Apple, or why Google or TripAdvisor is investing so much into the world of travel. And it's because the world of travel is the #1 discretionary spend of all consumers worldwide. So if you look globally, the #1 discretionary spend is travel. The second one is actually home furnishings, things you buy for your home. It's because your sort of hearth and home is king. And the third one, which has actually jumped from 5th space 2 years ago to the third item, is this concept of dining out. So for all the hotels, you have food and beverage. Food and beverage can no longer be just about servicing your guests and operations. It is a critical part of your business. It should be a critical part of your revenue and your profit, which is why the revenue management group has now really, I think, really pushed and focused and rallied around this total hotel profit optimization. And as you heard earlier, if you don't do it, your owners are going to ask you to do it as well. So with that, I would like to also, oh yes, sorry, I did have one more, which was in revenue management, which you would have heard from Kelly's area, which is this whole concept of understanding the consumers and their reaction to what they see about your price and your user review online. So that was Kelly's book there, which represents this whole concept of, really looking at how the social world and consumer behavior is going to come and become an integral part of revenue management. And this one I picked up from the Horwath tourism megatrends in terms of key technology influences. So just 6 to kind of set the scene again. Mobile continues real-time insights. So it's about really knowing at this moment, if I'm here, what is the best message to serve to a particular individual. It's about getting your reports and your analytics in a very personalized way to the person who's reading it and getting the information just right for them. This real-time customization is talking about 24 hours, anywhere you are in the world, whatever you want, you actually nowadays, you expect your service provider to be able to do that for you. Any sort of a customization, no more, this is my fixed menu and that's all you're gonna get from it. So digital interaction, your ability to interact through your mobile or your tablets. Robots, it's now just started in some of the Japanese hotels, but I think it is going to be quite pervasive. I mean, if you think about it, we all struggle from getting enough talent, and we can't even get talent to speak all the right languages as our guests do. But hey, this robot can speak probably 150 different languages with perfect pronunciation. So I think it will definitely be coming on stronger more and more, and then wearables, as we heard.